Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the attendees and panelists. Really great to be here today. I think it's quite a luck to have this quality of personnel attending. And before we start, I think I would just like to share a quick thought. I think I used to attend many of these exhibitions personally, physically, either at moderator or simple visitors. I think the good benefit of it is also to connect, to network with people. So I would encourage any attendees, if they have any questions, to raise it, or if they want to connect with any panelists on LinkedIn, they can do it too. It's also part of the experience. So now back to the core of our discussion. I think we have really great last two discussions that really showed the momentum in Industry 4.0 in Vietnam, both from the main industrial companies, Bosch, B. Braun, ST Electronics really being focused on the topic, and the government supporting the digital transformation. And to build on this, we have selected the following topic for our panel discussion, which is: where is Vietnam today in the Industry 4.0 value chain spectrum? And especially, where are we today compared to other ASEAN countries in terms of Industry 4.0 adoption and focus industries, and same thing going forward. I think what we want also in this panel discussion is to have each of the participants share a bit more about their own experience on settling, deploying Industry 4.0 in Vietnam. What did work, what failed, and what kind of support can you get in Vietnam? And I understand, I think from some of the questions, it will be quite of interest for many people. So this is the core of the discussion. I think to start this panel discussion, I will go to you, Sridhar. I think if you can start by giving your first perspective on where do we stand in Vietnam in terms of Industry 4.0, especially comparing with other ASEAN countries. Where are we in Vietnam today?
Okay, thank you very much, Arnaud, and warm welcome to all the participants and the speakers for this wonderful event. It's great to connect, as Arnaud mentioned. Coming back to Arnaud, so since before the pandemic, right, there's always the horizon we always refer it, before pandemic and after pandemic. And we have seen currently after the pandemic, there's really a strong push in the digitalization efforts, not only from MNCs, but SMEs perspectives. From our engagement with our Vietnam state-owned and also private-owned enterprises, from our applying the Smart Industry Readiness Index efforts through the EDB Economic Development Program, we have understood that Vietnam companies are more eager than their peers from the Southeast Asian nations in applying these technologies, in getting into this digitalizations, right? So we have seen a strong coordination effort from public, private, and academic stakeholders for this intention to translate this, as we see from our discussions earlier So the current trends that we see from the industry is more towards, for instance, we have seen a quite tremendous push of FDIs in the last 5 years to the Vietnam, and manufacturing is one of the key enablers for this GDP, right? So in that perspective, we could see here enterprises are moving towards most after the pandemic to create sustainability in the supply chain and also creating sustainability in manufacturing. So current trends where we have seen there's a strong digital ecosystem have been developed in the last few years. So companies are leveraging on this in order to create a kind of an integrated system so that they could able to integrate better with the suppliers, better with their customers from Europe, from Korea, from Japan, and also from US. Because of the volatility in the market, there's always a trend in surge in market demand. So they couldn't able to predict this in upfront. So the digitalization efforts, as most of the manufacturers upfront, they have described getting into a digitalization efforts, right? Getting the connectivity right, getting the visibility, not only in the operations, but also in the supply chain, having them a kind of a better managing their inventories. That is one of the paramount impacts that we have seen after the pandemic or not.
Thanks, Sridhar. Very interesting. I think I fully agree. The digital savviness in Vietnam and the use of digital is very high. And also, I think we can feel this impact of the supply chain redirections linked to the trade topics at the Asia region. Very interesting. I mean, also in these lines, I mean, one level, let's say, lower behind these key trends, a regular question is, what does work in Industry 4.0 in Vietnam? What are the key use cases? What are the key digital innovations that can be deployed with a positive return? And we know often Industry 4.0, there is good ideas, but to see the dollar impact is more difficult. And I will ask the following question to Wilson, because I know you have been deploying concrete project Industry 4.0 in Vietnam. And if you can share with us, what works well today, what is still difficult to solve?
Sure, thank you so much. I think it's a great question that you asked here, because when we look into Vietnam, it is actually a very booming country right now in terms of manufacturing. The capabilities and the influx, given political winds and changes that has been occurring, has definitely supported a massive growth, but also has created a situation where there is a labor crunch, especially when it comes to digitalization and automation. And not to be unique to Vietnam, we see this as a problem across all different countries, as Arcstone operates quite heavily throughout Southeast Asia. We see that there is this crunch of talent necessary to run and drive new digital solutions that understands the concept of Industry 4.0 and creates a unique kind of dynamic where we need to look at how do we support so many different countries and companies that are now working to digitalize, but don't have all the capabilities locally. Where are the systems integrators? Where are they going to be able to come in to help? And this has been our key unlock working in Vietnam. We've been there quite a number of years and have worked through quite a number of projects as well. We partner very closely with local systems integrators that have the on-ground talent and experience to support a lot of these manufacturers in their digitalization process. It's not going to be easy for you to do everything in-house. You can do some of them. You can attempt some of the processes. You can look at testing solutions, doing some POCs here and there. But ultimately, when you're ready for the entire factory rollout, when you're ready for multiple facility rollout, this is where that support really needs to come in and really need to help out, especially from a guidance process, a project management process, implementation and integration process. Those are the ones that are going to be the most complex. And this is essentially coming not necessarily always from someone wanting to move into the Industry 4.0 space, but it's more so also from the requirements from the outside world. If you are selling over to the US or into Europe or into other foreign countries that have a much more regulated industry or have a much more highly restrictive data policy when it comes to sending information to your key manufacturers that you supply to, parts and components that you may be shipping to particular countries, or just as another, as we mentioned about how COVID has created a situation where there's a lot of ambiguity in the shipping process and delivery processes. How do you have that information transact properly from end to end and provide that visibility to the larger multinationals that you may be working with? That is one of the big demands and pressures that everyone is facing. And much more so, I would say, especially in Vietnam, as a lot of the focus is on export. And I think this is something where we see that the need for more transparency into the supply chain, but from the standpoint of the shop floor, is a very critical one. And of all of these, the regulatory conditions, the connectivity from the small SMEs and suppliers that are producing parts and components to the larger players, we may not know, for example, how to actually get going on that. You may need the outside support. You may need the outside services that are provided by others. And this is why it's so important to have a proper systems integration network that provides not only the consulting services, but also the hardware integration services, but also the software services to bridge all these together. And there's wonderful companies that we've been working with. One example is KSMC, for example. We've been working with them for many years, and they have offices throughout Vietnam that helps to support this process, to help companies to transition. You can do a lot of homework in-house. The SIRI program and index to actually measure where you are in that process is a great one to do in-house. But once you're ready to scale, these are ones where you're able to start leveraging external services to actually help out. And we see that the most successful ones are a combination of both of these two. One is to make sure that you have professional experts coming in from the outside. And then two, making sure that internally you've done your own homework. You've assessed where your pain points are. You've figured out kind of what are the core priorities that the company needs to achieve. Some of it may be HR related. Some of it may be talent upskilling related. It actually is not about the solution that you need to buy, but about the people that's inside of the organization that you need to improve. before you go start taking next steps. And if you are able to manage and merge these two capabilities together, most of the projects that we're going to be able to run have a much, much higher chance of success in terms of reaping the true benefits of whatever solution you deploy. Whereas what we don't want to go into is cases where if the organization is not ready, did not conduct and support and get support from professionals, and perhaps tried a little something here and there in-house, that is a very high likelihood of failure, or you run a small project that doesn't actually get to scale because none of the calculations were done properly to see if it's worthwhile to scale or cost-effective to scale, or if the team could actually support the tool as it continues to scale. So these are things I think that when you bridge the two components, the outside world, the consultants, the experts, and then doing your own homework inside in your own organization, you're going to have a much higher chance of success than doing it all alone.
Thanks a lot, Wilson. Very, very interesting. And I think it builds up nicely on what Shrida also mentioned. You know, this supply chain trend to Vietnam also impacts, you know, the whole rest of the local supply chain. So what about the local players, the SME? How can they adjust to it? And an initial question for you before switching. So you mentioned some of the, you know, cost calculation or how, you know, make Industry 4.0 initiatives beneficial. So I would say between, you know, the main blocks that are automation, data analytics, and digital operations, what would you say is the most successful, the most widespread Industry 4.0 actions at the moment in Vietnam?
I would say there are two critical ones. One is data capturing for the purpose of visualization and optimization. So you see a lot of IoT use, you see a lot of integration with equipment, controllers, PLCs, SCADA systems, so that you have end-to-end visibility over the production process. That is a very big push in terms of the first kind of stages of digitalization. The second one is that we also see a large investment moving towards the automation process. I think similar to other countries that have faced this, it's not a matter of cost-effective manpower. You eventually will run out of enough people who are willing to work in a manufacturing environment. So it may be cost-effective for now, but in the years to come, it's very evident that you cannot rely just purely on manual labor to do the jobs and the work that you need to perform. And this becomes a very kind of tricky scenario where it is driving a lot of demand towards physical automation. These would be on the cobots, the automation equipment, the automation machinery that has been put in. And again, the systems integrators that are coming into the space have a lot of potential to play in as well to support this engagement. But those would be the two key areas: physical automation and looking into digitalization for visualization purposes and optimization. Those are the areas that we've seen tremendous amount of aggression, because that's how you control and maintain and optimize and maximize the physical investment into the equipment that you've already done, and make sure that you are protected and future-proof so that you have as many of the non-essential manual processes moved into an automated process as quickly as possible, so that you can pivot your workforce into areas that will provide more value and will be able to support you in a much more fluid way as the market changes and the market shifts.
Thanks, Wilson. I think fully agree, and I think it's quite also a finding for me that last couple of years, Vietnam is moving up, you know, in the value chain. Automation is becoming a real topic. So moving from a really low-cost labor country to a more developed, digitalized. I think it's very true for larger international company or larger local companies, but SMEs are also starting to implement Industry 4.0, and there are different ways to do it, probably, but they still start to do it. And I would ask Mrs. Huang, as acting head of the SME Association, if you could share with us, you know, your experience and your view on how Vietnamese SME are implementing and deploying Industry 4.0 at the moment.
Yes, definitely. In Vietnam, FDI enterprises and large domestic enterprises have faced the opportunity from Industry 4.0 very quickly and effectively. They are great example for SMEs in Vietnam to learn and to start thinking about the opportunity for them. According to survey data by the Ministry of Industry and Trade of Vietnam in July 2021, most SMEs in Vietnam believe in the effectiveness of digital transformation, but only 20% of enterprises have carried out some digital transformation activities. For example, Optoelectronic International Joint Stock Company, OEIC, is a medium company in Vietnam that specializes in manufacturing optical, electronic, and microchip products. They have digital their entire management, monitoring each step of manufacturing process by QR code, evaluating product quality by vision technology, using AI to analyze products, using data analysis to identify the cause of failures, predict possible problems closely, monitor production processes, greatly reduce costs, increase product quality. Their product data is connected to the global market, so they could be proactive in terms of raw materials, delivery time, payment, and easily increase production scale when there is market demand. In general, the need to improve productivity, quality, the reduction of product cost requires businesses to quickly innovate and understand technologies. Because of language barriers, many SMEs still lack information, and they find it hard to get to the right partner and the right solution for their business. However, we believe they would gradually understand more about Industry 4.0 and would have a chance to connect with their possible partner to events like ITAP 2021.
Thanks a lot, Mrs. Wong. I think it's a very insightful comments, and I share with you this that also from the local SMEs there is a demand to reach out to also local or foreign partners to enter this Industry 4.0 world. So we've seen there's clear macro trends pushing 4.0 in Vietnam. There's also initiatives both from large and SME groups that are ramping up. I think now the question is, do we have in Vietnam the sufficient infrastructure enablers to boost up this Industry 4.0? And I will get to Dr. Pham for this next question as CIO of Becamex, a leading industrial park company. So Dr. Pham, what is for you the key required enablers for company to deploy Industry 4.0 in Vietnam, and what is today offered as a support?
Thank you, Arno, for the question. So hello, everyone. To answer the question, I think, as you know, Becamex, we are the leading industrial park developer in Vietnam. We have around 4,000 FDI investors inside our industrial park, and including the local investor too. We realize that everyone is talking about Industry 4.0, but to be honest, currently the infrastructure inside the industrial park in Vietnam is still not really mature, and we need to improve a lot. For example, we currently inside the industrial park, we provide only some traditional services. For example, wastewater treatment and internet connection or something like that. But if we want to apply the Industry 4.0 widely, for example, with IoT application to upgrade the the current factory to the industry 4.0, for example, using the big data, IoT, AI, or something like that. I think we need more. We need to upgrade our current industrial infrastructure. For example, in the BKMX, we have developed some center of excellence named with Smart Manufacturing Innovation Center. This center is to help our tenant to find the technology solution to upgrade to overcome the pain point. For example, we work with some name for Nutri-Food, something like that in Vietnam, and they want to train their technical staff about the industry 4.0. And this center, because BKMX until now, we also realize that we need to upgrade our industrial infrastructure. So that's why we have developed our technical department to build. We want to build something like a playground for the technology solution provider, for the vendor come from the foreign country and even the local vendor, who they can work with our tenant and to help our tenant to overcome the difficult their pain point. And that even everyone is talking about the industry 4.0, but in order to upgrade our existing OT infrastructure and also the IT infrastructure, the Vietnam need to continue to develop our local vendor and our local solution provider, because now in the OT sector, only the foreign corporation like Bosch, Siemens, Schneider Electric. Vietnam, we don't have much of a big corporation who can play an important role in this area. And in the IT field, Vietnam is lack of the solution provider, and we only until now the software outsourcing is still take a big person in the IT field. So we need to continue to increase the number of the local solution provider in Vietnam instead of focusing on the software outsourcing. So that's my answer to the question.
Thanks, Dr. Pham. I agree also. I think there is a basis that is here, but let's say the network of local vendors, of local companies is still to be built. But it's really, I think, amazing to see companies like BKMX are really building the future of industrial park. And myself, I've seen some industrial park 10 years ago, and I've seen them change today in some of the newest one. And I think compare even to Asia region, there's some of the most modern and well-equipped industrial parks. So on the side of infrastructures, I do believe there's a lot of progress that have been made. Now, another enabler that is critical is government incentives or attraction package to deploy Industry 4.0. And I believe, Sridhar, you have been working also with different parties and ministries on Industry 4.0. So it's great if you can share some of the key mechanisms, incentives or programs that are being built or are being built to boost Industry 4.0 in Vietnam.
Thanks, Anand. It's a very good, great question that you have raised, because what we have seen from my personal experience, so there's a strong support from the government and agencies to driving this digital talent. When we talk about in the next few years, the influx from FDI on the high-tech industries is quite huge. And they realize that mapping these digital talents, growing their own talents in their operations, in their supply chain, or in their factories, that is very prominent, important element for the agencies and also from the industry perspective. So in that perspective, we have seen a lot of incentivations that have been triggered from the agencies and the government. For instance, MOIT, MOSD, Productivity Institute, they are able to kind of servitizations for the pilot projects. So the important aspects why we see from the industry is they're quite skeptical in investing for the digitalizations because of the lack of ROIs, and also they are not sure whether it will be the right technologies. So in that perspective, the industries, the agencies, right, as Mr. Tan also mentioned, they are boosting this capability for the companies to start with some pilot projects, look at the scalability and the success factors of this one. And then from that, they could able to build the confidence, and they can strategize their investments accordingly to the right projects or right technologies. So in our personal observations in engaging with a lot of the C-level executives in Vietnam, especially in manufacturing from FMCG, F&B industries, and textile industries, we have seen, and also high-tech electronics. In order to implement this digital transformation successfully, the businesses need to have the right strategy, right? If they don't have a right strategy, though they'll be able to invest in silos in a lot of projects, and they couldn't able to scale this. And they also want to prioritize in using right technologies. For instance, always Industry 4.0 is associated with AI. We're talking about machine learning. We're talking about advanced analytics. But you need to create a digital backbone in order to envision these technologies, in order to scale them, don't stuck in these pilot purgatories, right? So that is where we have seen there's a strong increment plans as we have a government effect, kind of providing them an assessments as a kind of initial tool for them to quickly scan the existing infrastructure, understand the pain points, and from that prioritize these focus dimensions. And there's a kind of another set of incentivations for the companies in order to boost the productivity. So what we have seen typically, one of the important areas that you'd like to address from most of the C-levels that we discuss is about bringing the productivity to the next stage, right? That is where Industry 4.0 is one of the key enablers for them. So in that perspective, a lot of incentivations from these government agencies are targeted towards bringing this productivity, connected workforce, bringing this kind of a visibility in the workforce to track, empower them to make the decisions faster, trainings. So training is one of the key strategy for the government and also for the agencies to upskill the workforce so that they will be prepared. So there's a strong surge in the industry, and we have seen a lot of in fact, SMEs have said we couldn't able to cope up with the demands. So, so in order, because our productivity is not to that particular level, so that's where investing in automations, as Mr. Wilson mentioned rightly, and also bringing this visibility in the supply chain is all. So these are the efforts that industries and also the agencies are pouring towards, focusing in the next 3 to 5 years.
Thanks, Frida. Very good insights. And my short add-on question for you, I think it's a bit, pragmatic and direct. If anyone in the company wants to either enter or other Industry 4.0 in Vietnam tomorrow, what will be your recommendation, or where else would they reach out to? Either some agency, some private consultants, or some ministries? Is there any best way to do it, or it's really tailored and case by case?
If you look into earlier discussion, Ms. Queen would have also discussed that a lot of agencies, a lot of governments, based on the kind of verticals, they have come up with a lot of strategies and government plans and incentivations, and also to start the digitalization also from the FDI perspective. So you need to understand whether you are talking about FMCG related industries, or you're talking about high-tech industries, or even as Mr. Tuan mentioned about this targeting under the industry specialized zones like Becamex or smart cities, where a lot of investments are pouring towards certain regions like Ho Chi Minh, Dong, Hanoi. So if you look into that particular associations relevant to that industry industry development associations, they will be the right partners for them to collaborate. And also the right approach for the SMEs or for the MNCs is to start digitalization. It's not immediately focusing on the higher end technologies, right, set up the right digital backbones, right, having a kind of a quick scan, having a kind of a smart industry assessments with your operations, understand what is your priorities, align with the industry benchmarks to see where's the needle is ticking. For instance, if a textile industry, there's no need for immediately to deep dive into artificial intelligence because the use cases still haven't been matured in these industries. So you could able to get these use cases that is matured in the industry without reinventing the wheels, and then so that you could able to start, sustain, and scale your transformation programs effectively. I hope it answers. You can see that now.
Okay, very good to hear. And I think it's also what's big specific about Vietnam. There is quite agency, international, local governments, private that are here to support. I think the key is, as you mentioned, knowing how to navigate and select the key ones. So I see. Sorry, Wilson, you want to?
Yeah, I actually wanted to add a little point to that, if you don't mind. I think Sridhar mentioned something very important, that we also have been doing a lot of almost counter programming for a lot of business owners, is to take a step back away from chasing the big names of what Industry 4.0 should be, such as machine learning, AI, cobots, AGVs, full end-to-end automation. They all sound like wonderful things. We all want to achieve that goal. But let's not forget about the hard work and the backbone, the digital foundation that needs to be built first. Those are step-by-step, do your own homework in-house, find a consultant to help you support to build that structure before you get to that stage. Otherwise, that whole pilot trap, starting something that never works, starting something that's too far ahead that no one is able to cope with, those are kind of big risks that I think a lot of, especially smaller SMEs, may face, because they don't know where to go and how to start, and there's no roadmap for them to work on. So there are two key areas that I highly recommend to look into: either a external support from a established systems integrator that you can have a conversation with, or looking at what that is already available in the ecosystem, such as the SIRI program, which allows you to really, the Smart Industry Readiness Index, that really allows you to do kind of your own internal homework to assess where are you right now and what types of solutions that you should look at, even though they may be very fundamental at the beginning, to not end up kind of jumping ahead and then realizing you've jumped too far, that you were not able to actually utilize those tools, but instead have a step-by-step improvement process, then a step-by-step achievable and viewable results that helps you expand your confidence and the morale of the entire team to move forward with Industry 4.0, instead of jumping into something that you don't know what it's about and then potentially not seeing the results and then having a demoralized team that will have trouble starting up again to try again. So this, I think this point, I just wanted to re-emphasize, it's actually very important. We see a lot of these failures happen quite often, and it's important for people to realize that Industry 4.0 is not about spending money at the beginning. It's really about internal assessment, getting the team ready, getting the team to understand the value of data, and then improving along the way.
Thanks, Wilson. Exactly, and I think especially more in Vietnam, where some of the foundations are still being built in terms of talent, digital backbone, where the tendency to jump far away can be quite risky. So it's really true, especially for Vietnam. Yeah. I see that the time is running, but I want to cover a key question, quite current question around the COVID-19 impact, especially how Industry 4.0 relates to it. How is it boosting some Industry 4.0 initiatives, or maybe in the other side, how is it slowing it down? How does it make it more complex because foreign experts cannot fly in, or FDI are slowed down? So it's quite a big question. I don't expect anyone to have the real answer, but I would ask Dr. Pham, because you have this industrial part on the ground view. So what would you say have been the COVID-19 impacts or development of this Industry 4.0 projects, and more generally, I think, the industrial park development scene?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. So because after COVID-19 pandemic happened, everyone realized the important role of the technology in the factory and in the manufacturing. Because the evidence is that we got a lot of requests from our tenants, because sometimes they need to, because during this time they want to train their workforce, the technical team, to what is the I4, what is the Industry 4.0, And even they realize that they need to apply the technology inside their factory as soon as possible, because everyone, the society is under the lockdown, so they cannot go to the office, and even they need to work remote work from. They must be work from home or something like that. And even for the factory, how do they continue to maintain the operation and maintain the maintenance and something like that? And even they want to do during the pandemic, during the lockdown. We organize a lot of training about the I4 with experts and even with the Tupsut. And and after the webinar and after the training, they asked the BICAMX and they asked us to continue to help them to upgrade, to reskilling, to upgrade the skill of the technical team. And even for so I think that the COVID-19 will accelerate the development of the industry 4.0 in Vietnam very faster. And everyone will realize that they need to apply the technology inside the organization and in the factory. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Pham. I would have a similar question with you, Mrs. Huang. So for the SMEs, how have the SMEs reacted, or how have COVID-19 has affected the SMEs in Vietnam? And how did they leverage Industry 4.0 to overcome some of these challenges?
Yes, Vietnamese government identified the 21st the digital era with numerous opportunity and challenge for SME. The government of Vietnam has implemented the National Digital Transformation Scheme, which has three main pillars: digital government, digital economy, and digital society. Vietnam understands that the fourth industrial revolution is an opportunity for Vietnam to develop. The main goal of the national scheme is that the digital economy would account for 20% of GDP by 2025 and 30% of GDP by 2030. The target set by 2025 is to support all businesses to raise awareness about digital transformation. At least 100,000 businesses receive support from the government, and at least 100 businesses are supported to become example of digital transformation in Vietnam. This is quite a modest target compared to the number of nearly 800,000 active businesses in Vietnam. Currently, there are some programs to support SME in digital transformation. There is a program from the Ministry of Information and Communication to connect the provider of technology solutions for SMEs in Vietnam. And we've got a program from the Ministry of Planning and Investment with the support from USAID that helps SMEs in supplying products globally. But the number of SMEs that join those programs are not many because the most support is not much. Administrative procedures are complicated and take a lot of time, especially when the company must reorganize their business model and comprehensively restructure, which is weakness of businesses in Vietnam.
Thanks, Mrs. Wong. I think you actually touched, the number two for me, key pain points in deploying some business in Vietnam, which is some part of administrative burden, which applies, whenever you want also to transform your company. I see the time is out. Very insightful conversation. For me, what I take is very clear. The trend for Industry 4.0 is very strong, both from the macro factors, the supply chain redirection to Vietnam, economic growth, and as covered, the boost of COVID-19 that will even accelerate this trend. Now, the way to the Industry 4.0 transformation is still challenging around the talents, the understanding of the topic, and the administrative burden. These key challenges will remain very heavy. But hopefully, I can see also that both the government, private sectors, and SMEs are all behind it to make it happen. With these closing words, I think I would like to thank a lot the panelists for the insightful comments, and also all of the attendees who shared the session with us. Thank you.